So that took just a matter of minutes. You've got a running XNAT. But there are a couple of things yet to do before we want to move on to other topics. So one thing that I find useful is resetting the XNAT system user password just to make sure that I have easy access to it. You want to be able to sudo as that user, and you want to be able to SCP from your local system as that user. So we do that by using our vagrant SSH command that I talked about earlier. We now have a vagrant shell into the XNAT local release machine. And you can see we're logged in as the vagrant user. This isn't very useful beyond just getting us in the door. So we can sudo as the XNAT user. And so now our home directory is XNAT home, and it has config, logs, plugins, themes, and work, just as you would expect to see in any running XNAT. You can see here our path to the working directory /data/xnat/home. If I wanted to change the password for this user, the easiest way to do that is to sudo as the root user. So that was nice and easy. The next thing we can do is install the postfix SMTP, and this is a useful tool because XNAT does not come pre-installed with an SMTP server. But this postfix utility lets you set one up quickly. And as we've documented in the XNAT documentation, you can use Google's Gmail as an SMTP server. The only caveat here is that you have to you might have to flick a switch in your account settings for Google to allow you to do this. But we have documented here in the vagrant documents in Bitbucket a script called configure postfix that will let you set up this SMTP. So I'll copy the first part of this and start entering in my own information. And if you enter in your username without specifying the password flag, it will prompt you for the password, which is nice. That way you don't have to enter it in as plain text. So this script will run, and then you'll get an SMTP server at the end of it. Because this SMTP is installed on the same machine as your XNAT is, in the XNAT site admin settings, for email server, you can maintain localhost. You don't have to change any of these settings. That postfix SMTP server is now at your localhost. So there's no additional authentication beyond what we just installed via the postfix config, and you don't need start TLS or anything else. And then lastly, as a nice thing to have, just a fully functioning XNAT system, you would want to install a couple of plugins. So I can go back to my download page. I can grab the latest OHIP viewer, and I can grab the latest container service. And I'll go ahead and get the batch launch plugin as well. So I'm going to CD in my downloads folder. And you can see I've got 3 jar files that I've just downloaded from the XNAT downloads page. I'm going to SCP all of them into my XNAT VM. And the reason that I changed the XNAT system user's password is to make sure that I can get access to it here from my local command line. Because now I want to SCP as the XNAT user into the local server. And I'm copying these files into my XNAT home plugins directory. I have to specify what files. That would be smart. So the machine doesn't, my computer doesn't recognize this machine and wants me to set up a local key so that to match the self-signed certificate. So we want to say yes to this. It will add that key. That you'll only be asked that once. And then we enter the password that we changed it to, and now we have our plugins installed. So the last thing to do to get our plugins activated is to restart Tomcat. So restarting Tomcat requires some knowledge of the commands required to manage your local VM. So we've got these 3 up here that are very useful for stopping, starting, and restarting your Tomcat server. And I'm about to use this system control restart command. And then I'm going to use this tail command to watch the output of Catalina, the Tomcat Catalina log. And if you've used previous versions of XNAT where it was on Tomcat 7, you'll notice this syntax has changed just a little bit. So there, the restart has taken effect, and I'm going to now tail. And the Catalina log actually now has dates associated with it, so my little PowerPoint slide was just slightly wrong. A little bit annoying to watch these Catalina logs get piled up, but it is what it is. And this does take a minute or so to complete the restart. Once we do get the restart completed, we will see another entry in this Catalina log, just like we saw at startup, telling us that the system came up in a specified number of milliseconds. And there it is. Having bounced Tomcat, our authentication's been kicked out, so we can log back in. We can administer our plugins. And so we've got container service set up. That's the only one that of the 3 that has a menu there. But we can just make sure we've got all 3 of our plugins installed, and we do. So congrats, you now have a running XNAT, and you can do any number of other things with it. We recommend checking out the rest of XNAT Academy for some exciting activities. Thanks very much.